Well, hello and welcome to another episode of At Random. I'm Rick Timmis.
I'm John Wordsworth.
And I'm Jackson Matthews, back from the dead.
Hooray! Jack is back! We're back in Jack! You know it, my man.
Back again.
Oh,
Jack is
buddy,
back.
we missed you. We really missed you last week. I had to do almost all the talking, Jack, and you know how I hate that.
There's no one to bring us tea, and there's no one to put my feet on. It was bad, Jack. It was bad.
Yeah, it was shocking.
There's always a third of a bottle of wine left over.
Was there really? Yeah. Yeah.
That doesn't sound plausible, does it?
No. I was able to deal with the wine, Jack, but I couldn't eat all that pizza.
No, I was doing very, very important dad stuff. It was it's a lot being able to say I'm doing dad stuff. I like to call myself dad. I like joining the novelty of it.
Who's
Yeah.
a daddy?
You the daddy, Jack. You the daddy.
It's fun until about 2 o'clock at night, and then I don't want to be daddy anymore.
Then you want to be sleepy.
Then you want your mummy, don't you? Then you go, I want my mummy.
Yeah. Let's take you upstairs and see how mum's doing. Oh, yeah, she's asleep. Should we wake her up? Yeah, let's wake her up.
You've got to be really good at feigning sleep, surely, Jack. That's the key, right? Oh, I didn't hear it. I'm sorry. I just didn't hear it. It didn't wake me up.
No, it's worth remembering, though.
But give us an update a minute, Jack. Let's get some news from you. So how's it all going? How many weeks have you had the new baby now? And what species is the baby?
The three and a bit weeks she is.
Wow.
And the numbers on her head are like safe. They're not sixes. There's a 2 sevens and a 1. Nothing to worry about. And no, she's absolutely beautiful.
Am I going to have to call child services? You've been etching numbers into her head.
My wife is a maths teacher. Who do you think has been writing numbers on the baby's head?
Oh, that's your alibi, is it? That's your alibi, Jackson.
They won't look twice at me. They'd never believe I could even write those
I
numbers.
wouldn't believe
much less-
Jack can count to 3 digits.
No,
Oh, yeah, but we know how you like drawing, Jack. Come on, just because your wife's a maths teacher, but we know how artistic you are. Are you sure
I
that's
draw,
going to be
though.
a
She does
sufficient
algebra.
alibi?
I've got away with it. It's already too late. I've got a perfect alibi because I'm telling you guys about. I wouldn't tell you guys about it if I'd actually done it. I've
What you're
got away
saying
with
is it all adds up. That's what you're saying.
it. Yeah, it all adds up to what was it? 16.
Oh,
But
fantastic.
yeah, going really well.
Oh, well, I'm really pleased. I'm really, really delighted. And obviously, and Mum's all good and everything going well there, yeah? Mum's fine.
Yeah, just one day at a time. But she's over the moon all the time. She just can't stop cooing over it. In fact, when she should be going to bed, when it's her time to go to bed, she says, "Can I just stay up with her a little longer?" She'll come back down and say, "Oh, can I hold her for a bit? You should be in bed."
And Jackson rule with an iron fist. You say no.
Oh, good stuff. Well, as I say, we had 2 wonderful guests join us last week to try and to help us fill out the space. So that was quite timely because obviously, you had daddy's duties to take care of, and so we had Jonathan Riddle and Scarlett Clark from the Ubuntu Linux distribution who joined us last week, and it was that was really interesting having a chat with them, wasn't it, John?
Yeah, that's really cool. It was nice to hear a bit more in detail about Ubuntu and why we should be using it.
Yeah, it was. They were cool guys, actually, and you kind of like they were hardcore, like I mean, Jonathan Riddle's been involved in that distribution for a long time, and Scarlett is, Scarlett scares me, man. She's just frighteningly clever. There we are. So anyway, we've got the jollities and the frivolities out of the way, and frankly, I'm upset because you'll see, the audience will see watching on Google Hangouts that, of course, John, are you on your Apple? Are you on your Mac at the moment, John?
Yeah, of course. That's
Yeah,
the
you say so.
podcasting machine,
John's on his Mac, and he's got the banner at the bottom that says John Wordsworth, logically fuzzy. And Jack, clearly Jack, you must be on a Windows laptop, are you?
Yes. It is a Windows app. Can you not see my lower third?
I can, yes. Jackson Matthews winging it, and clearly I must be on some substandard kind of GNU herd distribution, because I haven't got a thing. Well, I'm angry, frankly. I am. I'm Mr. I'm Mr. Angry from Exeter, actually, because this is several weeks now that on Chromium, the Chrome browser, if you like, the open source Chrome browser, the Hangout toolbox nothing works on this thing. It's all broken. The bottom banner won't work. You can't upload the YouTube playlist thing doesn't work on this, and all of those funky widgets, and it's outrageous, really. So I'm going to write an official complaint, guys. I'm at the chromium.org developers website, and I'm going to give them some gyp. So I'm going dark now while I go off to complain.
Do you at least get the group chat on the right hand side, or is that something else which you don't get?
Group chat on the right hand side. Is this window that I'm typing in here, where I'm typing my complaint in here that goes like this: the bastards.
Yeah, I got that. I'll make sure it's forwarded on verbatim, because it looks like you've really got the power of your statement in there.
With the 3 smiling faces appearing next to it. In fact, it makes it look like we're the bastards.
Yeah, it does, doesn't it? Yeah, because we've got our little icon.
And here they are, all 3 of them.
AtRandom Podcast, here they are, the bastards.
Which I suppose, yeah, there's something to it, but it doesn't get your complaint across, I suppose.
Oh dear. Well, it's shocking, really, when you think that, of course, the Chrome OS that's distributed to you guys, and the Chrome browser is developed from the Chromium project, which, of course, is an open source project. And I find it a little bit abhorrent, really, that the non-open platforms, Windows and Mac, everything seems to work fine and is well supported, and the open platform that's developing the software is substandard.
Yeah.
It's been like that for ages, hasn't it? I'm sure, like, when we did our prelude 3 months ago or something, like before we even started the series, didn't work there either, did it?
No, that's right. Well, yes, what I'm going to check before I go off half-cocked and make a spit out of myself, I've got the development release calendar here from chromium.org on their wiki, and the release of Chromium 37 on the 20th of June, but there's a new release 40 which is due to come out in 2 days' time, so on Friday, and at the moment the version of Chromium that I've got here is version 37 from June. So there's a chance that that maybe it might start working correctly when I get the updates and pull those in shortly. But we'll see. But it has been broken for a little while. Several items of it, and it's very disappointing, actually, to see that happen, because we've been, using this for a while for AtRandom for a couple of years, and we've been, as a group, very much early adopters. And in the early days, in actual fact, on Linux, this was very feature-rich. Often you had more new features in this than you did have on the officially released platforms, and it seems to have gone the other way now. So something's not happening with the upstream and downstream sharing of code and stuff there.
You're just not as important. That's the truth of the matter.
Well,
it's harsh, but yeah, I guess that's the way they see it, isn't it? They just I swear, they just think, they just forget about it. They just forget about certain platforms in favour of the big ones, because those are the people who are probably have the greatest number of voices and are shouting the loudest. So they tend to put that way, I suppose.
And I suppose the Linux community are a bunch of cheapskates and want everything for free. Won't spend any money on anything, So there might be that. Of course, I'm going to be absolutely trolled and flamed now for that one. But, do you remember to share if in fact, if we have got complaints from listeners, just remember that you need to, if you want to email us, the email address is devnull@atrandom.org.uk, and that'll hit my desk, and I will take it seriously.
And we'll reply within 100 years.
Yes, absolutely.
Guaranteed.
Well, so now it looks very dark over there, John. So either the nights are drawing in, or the bailiffs have boarded up the windows. What's going on?
Well, there's a combination of. It is obviously dark. I mean, it's 10 o'clock, so even if it's summer, it would be mostly dark. But I've also got the blind down behind me, so.
That would be it.
Once street lights, then.
Let's do 'em. Show me a Swedish street light.
Oh, look, a little bit of Sweden there. A window.
Oh.
A little plant.
Chance of a bit
Wow,
of, like,
it's got
Swedish
oranges
night.
on it. Gosh, what a temperate climate you've got.
6 degrees today, so pretty cold actually.
Oh gosh, yeah, it is a bit cold. And what now? So this cold, I mean, obviously you'll be able to tell us more as time goes on because you've only been there a while. But is the cold that kind of dank, insipid, damp, sticky cold that we get in Devon that just makes you depressed, or is it a bit more crisp and?
So what I've heard from people who live here and tell me what I've got to look forward to over the next 4 months, they said the kind of November and then the counterpart sometime sort of February, March next year is the kind of depressing time because it's kind of got grey, a bit rainy. I guess British weather, British winter weather. But they say it kind of picks up again in December. So while it does get dark earlier and earlier, and I guess the sort of peak it gets dark at like 3:30 or something. The kind of cold just gets dry. It's a nice dry cold. So actually, they say that you actually feel warmer than you would in the UK when it's raining, because it's crisp. I mean, it doesn't sort of stick to you. So you go out for a walk for 5 minutes, and it's chilly, and you wrap up tight, but your clothes and your jacket keep you warmer because it's not wet. And then the second you get inside again, the cold is gone because your clothes get warm, unlike in the UK where you're wet and dank and horrible. So I've heard it's that's not the bad thing. I've heard the bad thing is the darkness.
And of course they'll be back again, won't they? The darkness, their Christmas songs will be coming on. I believe in a thing called love. Don't let the bells end. Oh, it's not. Sorry, I'm sorry, John. It's not that darkness you're talking about, is it? It's real darkness, Arctic Circle darkness.
Well, we're actually we want to. There's a place in the north of Sweden called the Ice Hotel that we really want to visit for a long weekend. And every year around, I guess it's around this time, probably a bit earlier, like October, because I mean Sweden's massive. It's about 700 or 800 miles from here up north before you get to this kind of civilization at the north of Sweden, and there's probably a couple hundred more miles after that. So if you go all the way up there, there's this hotel, and by this time of year it'll already be cold, so they actually make the whole hotel out of ice at this time of the year, and they get kind of like 20 or 25 artists in from around the world, and they all make a single room, and it's just a sculpture made out of ice. And then you can fly up there and you can stay in the ice hotel, and the idea is you usually spend one night in the ice hotel wrapped up in reindeer like blankets, and then you spend 2 or 3 nights in a chalet, very close, but so that you don't have to worry about the cold.
I thought you were going to say you spend 2 or 3 nights in hospital recovering from hypothermia.
Well, it's worth the pain. But no, so apparently it's a really good experience. So hopefully in a month or 2, we'll be able to talk about it and say how awesome it was.
I'm just thinking about when you go like camping and stuff, and you get up in the middle of the night, and you have to get out of the tent to make it all the way to like the toilets, and it's all like freezing cold and horrible. What do you do in like a whole like building made of ice when you need to use the bathroom? Because you will need to use the bathroom.
Yeah, I think that's another reason why you only spend 1 night in the ice hotel and 2 or 3 in like a nice warm log cabin. Sort of. And that's because generally, so outside at nighttime, apparently it gets to kind of minus 20, minus 25 degrees. Inside the ice hotel, because it's kind of like an igloo, it's only about minus 2 or 3. So it's actually fine to sleep in, especially with all your furs and stuff on. But if you need to pee, then you have to make the 200-meter trek to the main building to pee.
Yeah, so you don't
So,
stick to a wall or something.
So I think, well, I guess if you're peeing, you might be able to go around the corner, but you probably wouldn't want to. You probably wouldn't want to get your thing out when it's minus 25 degrees.
Behind
So
your
there isn't like a large yellow stalagmite in the corner where you just dump it on that and it adds
hole in the ground.
adds to the sculpture.
I doubt you'll be getting an invite there, Rick, because they won't be letting you in.
Yeah, well, don't tell them I said that I'll do that, but that could look quite good. It'd be quite unique, wouldn't it? Yeah. Good
one of the
stuff.
rooms was like a London Underground station last year, like because they had it carved out like a London Underground station. So that'd be quite fitting, wouldn't it? Really?
Yeah. Yeah. Oh well, look forward to this. So you'll have to come back and you'll have to report back when you come back and let us know. Tell us how that went on. Well, okay. Well, look, but let's keep marching on because I wanted to try and tighten the time up. We nearly killed our guests last week in the last show when we ran them for nearly 2 hours. That was because I couldn't cope without Jack reining me back in, and I was getting nervous and losing my feet. So let's move on into the news then. So I picked up this news this morning, and I'm really saddened actually to hear this. Genuinely saddened. So I've been listening to a podcast now for, I don't know, 6 years, something like that, which is the Linux Outlaws podcast. So you've got Dan and Fab, two guys that run this Linux Outlaws podcast, and they announced just in this last show that they've done that they're going to cease doing the show, and they're going to do 6 more shows, which will take it to Linux Outlaws episode 370, and then kaput, it is no more. And it just seems such a disappointment. I remember the Linux user group Lug Radio going this way, John O'Bacon and Stuart Langridge and those guys, and they, over the time they developed a really professional show that was really well polished, and the more you do these kinds of things, hopefully the better you get at them. Unless of course it's us, then it seems to just, I don't know, start up a piss poor standard and fail to maintain that standard. But there you go. But the Linux Outlaw guys have done the same thing, and so that's them coming to an end. Old Dan and Fab won't be doing that show anymore. And so if there are any listeners out there that are interested in a professional podcast that talks about Linux, then maybe they want to invent one, and they could invite some others to join them as guests.
You say that, Rick, but we have outlasted the Linux Outlaws. We got to be doing something, right?
Well, we've done 25 episodes. They've done.
We've outlasted them. We're still not, and they're not
Well, there is that.
I mean, all due respect, but
but maybe we could do a second podcast.
A second podcast. What do you have in mind, John?
I was thinking the Linux in-laws.
The Linux. Do you know what? Actually, yeah. That'd be really cheeky, wouldn't it?
Yeah, unless you could get like at least one of the original guys, that probably wouldn't fly.
No, I suspect it wouldn't. No, I suspect it would be clear. It would be absolutely clear that we were just bungling our bandwagon onto the back of some marketing pinnacle in the hope that we might get more than one listener for a change.
However, if we did get one of them on the show, you could use the joke. Now we have an outlaw for an in-law. So maybe it's worth trying.
Well, let me. Do you know what? I tell you what. Let me see what I can do. I'll see if I can poke Fab on Google Plus and see whether he would come on our show and talk about and allow us to interrogate him. He's a German; he'll understand interrogation. Perhaps we could interrogate him over why he's abandoning his mate from Liverpool and sodding off because because he can't be arsed, frankly. That's what it's about, isn't it? He can't be bothered to do it anymore. They're great guys, and they've done some great shows. And you know, I suppose they've got over. I mean, if you were to listen to an episode a day, you've got over a year's worth of episodes there, and which, you know, okay,
isn't it?
They've not been going. You know, obviously they haven't got the longevity, as Jack rightly says, of the AtRandom show. But they do. But I think they beat us for consistency, and they probably beat us for quantity.
But not quality.
No contest. There's absolutely no contest. But anyway,
so that is sad news. Though. It's sad. It's sad when it ends, but it's, you know, it's been a good run, right? You know.
Yeah, it is. It is sad that it's ending, but they've done, you know, an absolutely sterling job, and they've been, you know, a foundation really of the community for quite a long time, and I'm sure that they've had a lot of influence over a lot of people, and they've brought, you know, lots of great conversations, and their show, the style of their show, Fab went through this period where they'd sort of introduced the show a bit like we would do. So Dan would say, like, I'm Dan from whatever, and Fab would come on and he'd say, hi, I'm Fab, you bastards. That's the way he would introduce the show. And you know, I like that kind of style. I think it's honest. So God bless them. They've been doing a grand job. And for our listeners that are listening here, well, you've got 6 more episodes of Linux Outlaws that you can listen to if you want to. Go and check them out. You can find them on 6gun.org, 6gun Productions. So that's my news. What you got, John?
Awesome. So I've got a pretty big one, but we need to try not to focus too long on it, I think. Oh, and that's it. That's my
misses.
No, so it's a big bit of news that's been pushed back by a week. But 2 days ago, I think now, saw the official release date for Android 5 Lollipop.
Okay.
I think there's been a few hitches along the way, so we're not going to actually see any over-the-air updates to devices until the 12th of November, but that's still only a week away, so I think it's a pretty cool update to talk about because it's pretty big in terms of Android releases. So I guess I'll just whip through the main features quickly, and then we can discuss to our heart's content. So some of the big things that Android Lollipop is going to bring to whatever random smattering of devices are going to get the update. The user interface had a massive sort of looking over. So they're saying they've focused on the visual, the interaction, and the motion. And the big buzzword they're throwing around is a material design. So I think everything is supposed to feel like kind of bits of paper and magazine moving around a table.
This is scary, but it could be really cool. But I am getting worried.
So from what I've seen of it, a lot of the greys are out and they've become white. And you know, it's kind of lots of white backgrounds and blue bars at the top. So quite a lot like, you know, when you log into Google Docs, and Google Docs now has this kind of like, you know, this light grey background where there's nothing, a big strong blue bar at the top, and then kind of white pages where there's content. So everything that's got content on it has now got a white background.
Okay.
This kind of material design is what they're calling it, and it's, I think, again, meant to represent kind of something slightly physical. So things, when you sort of push and hold, they're meant to move around as though there's something there under your finger.
Now that I like the sound of.
Yeah, I think it's one of those things. I mean, every single UI redesign in the mobile space that's been pushed over the last 5 years has always had these massive promises, and when you come to use it, it's usually a lot smaller of an iteration than you think. But
yeah, it kind of reminds me how iPhone used to be before they rejigged everything with 7, was it? And it was all very much like what you're. Well, I hope I'm understanding you correctly. What they were talking about, what they had on their old ones, with all like buttons and switches that you actually switched. It wasn't things. It wasn't airy things. It was buttons with edges. And am I misunderstanding you?
I think buttons are out because magazine pages wouldn't have buttons on, so that doesn't fit. You know, it's all text links type type headers, and I think anyway. I'm trying to remember what but no,
That's still cool.
I'm kind of sad to see buttons go as well, like you were with iOS 7. Like sometimes it's nice to know the area of the screen to tap, not just tapping on words.
Exactly, yeah.
But no, it's a fairly nice sort of design. I think if I really quickly whip through the features, then we can kind of look back and discuss. So they've rejiggled the notifications. They're a lot better to handle, a lot easier to use, a lot quicker to get out of your way, and they've got like a do not disturb mode like Apple. They've called it something else, but you can say I don't want any notifications between the hours of midnight and 8 a.m. and you won't get any. There's been a lot of work on the security, so they've added something called Smart Lock, where if you've got a certain Bluetooth device like a headset or a watch, if it's within Bluetooth range, then your phone won't need unlocking because it'll assume that your watch acts as the authentication. They've added guest mode, I think, to both phones and tablets, so that you can hit a button, your phone goes into guest mode, you can give it to a friend, and they can't access your data, but they can still use the device. They've made some improvements to the facial unlocking, so that the camera on the device can look at your face and decide whether it wants to let you in or not. They've added raw image support, I guess on a device level, so cameras that want to support it can take raw photos. They've added support for USB audio. So in theory, you can plug in microphones and mixers into the USB slot of your device and use those. There's been a big focus on power efficiency, so they want to really get rid of all the inefficient bits of code that were draining battery power. So they've kind of gone through a few iterations. It's like one of them was to reduce memory performance a couple of versions ago, then it was to make things smoother, and now it's focusing on power. And then they've also added a lot of work on adding 64-bit support, so that the device is safe going forward in the future when devices start to get more than 4 gigs of RAM. And they've done a lot of work on what's called ART, which we can talk about more in a second, but it's the kind of the way that your apps run, because they're kind of written in like a Java language and then interpreted for a device. It used to be something called Dalvik, and they're trying to push this new one called ART, A-R-T, and that's supposed to have performance increases for basically across the board, all Android apps that aren't using native code. So that's it in a nutshell. And there's a lot of points there, but I wanted to just get them out because otherwise we'd probably spend forever talking about the first two and not get to the last two.
Well, so whilst you were talking there, I've just been taking a little bit of a flip through on the Android Lollipop webpage, and also some of the devices that they've got coming out. And I mean, gosh, some of this stuff looks really good indeed. I mean, they've got this Nexus 9. Let me just put some of the specs up on that for you, John. It's really summer.
Nexus 9. That's a fit between the 5, the 7, and the 11 or 10, or
must be, yeah. I mean, they've got a Nexus 9, a Nexus 6, and a Nexus 5, which I'll find out more when I look at it. But I mean, it looks super shiny. But in terms of processing power, this is a 64-bit Tegra K1. And it's running at 2.3 gigs, 192 core GPU, and it comes with 16 or 32 gigabytes, and it's an 8.9-inch IPS LCD screen. And the pictures on this on the page here for this Nexus 9 look amazing. You know, little fold-up keyboard, a little bit like a Microsoft Surface. You know, like a fold-up device that folds out with your keyboard. Which of course is perfect for using Google Docs and things like that. It looks a really just fantastic little device. Whether it's got a phone in it now, that's the killer application for me. You see, that all these mobile phone devices, then they stop putting a phone in it, and I struggle with that. You know, I mean, I know I look a bit like Dom Jolly gone mad. When I pick up my, in fact, we've got a camera here. When I get my, this is my Samsung Galaxy Tab 7, and I start going, "Hello, yeah, is that Domino's? Can I have a meteor with Riquito peppers, please?" And people think, "Look at that nutter, he's crazy." And then,
so that's before they see the phone, right?
Yeah, oh, that absolutely is. But how much cooler would I look with a 9-inch Nexus 9 holding that up? Okay, can I have fries with that? It looks good though. It does look
no,
very, very good. I'm very tempted.
Just reading I did a search for the Tegra K1, and it's like Apple's new iPad Air 2 destroys the Tegra K1. But anyway.
See, I'm picturing it actually destroying it like a Terminator or something. Like it grows arms and like we put them next to each other and it destroyed it.
Apparently, the Nexus 9 is similar in single-core performance to the iPad Air 2, but in multiple cores, it's beaten by the iPad 2 by 34%. But it's all kind of swings and roundabouts, isn't it? It doesn't really. You've either got a fast tablet or you've not got a fast tablet.
I mean, it used to be you just had an iPad or you just had a Samsung Galaxy or something, but now there are so many variations of both. It's quite hard to remember and compare. I mean, even when you think you've got a Nexus 10, but it's not just the Nexus 10. There's the Nexus 10s that they made before this year, and then there's like the Mark II ones. Oh, these are the new Nexus 10s coming out, and yeah, it can be quite. I mean, sometimes I swear the reviewers fall into the same trap.
It's kind of interesting because that is the sort of thing I would expect to be an Apple trick. Because like with the Apple MacBooks, you just get a MacBook. There's no real version. You have to sort of figure out what version you've got. But with their tablets, they haven't done that. They've specifically numbered every single one, so you know exactly what you're getting, which is interesting because I think that's a lot more honest. It's like we're bringing out the iPad Air 2, therefore it's different to the iPad Air. Whereas it kind of frustrates you with things like the Nexus when, if you bought one second hand, you'd be like, well, which one is it? When did you get it? What year did you get it? What month?
Yeah.
What's the number on the back? And it's quite hard to find out which one it is, but there's a significant difference,
Yeah, it can be. I mean, it's
especially if you're getting.
It can. I was just going to say, if you're hardcore, I mean, these little things make a difference, don't they?
Definitely, if you're running emulators and things, then.
Yeah.
Well, of course, given that Samsung have stuffed me again, I'm in complaint mode today, aren't I? I really am. But obviously, we had John and Jonathan and Scarlett on last week, and they recommended KDE Connect, this app, which I went off and got, and which is just fantastic. I mean, it's such a good app, and the functions that it offers for for interaction between the KDE desktop and the phone, and wonderful, except that it doesn't work with my version of Android. So only half the functions work with my version of Android, including file transfer. It doesn't work with my version of Android. And there is no upgrade path on the Samsung Galaxy Tab to upgrade to a new version. And the CyanogenMod website doesn't support it. And now I'm unhappy. But I think what would make me happier is a new Nexus. With Android Lollipop, if anybody would like to send me one, then you can get our address from atrandom.org.uk, which is our website, and of course we'll unbox it on the show, and we can talk more about it, and we'll do lots of free advertising.
If anybody wants to
I'm sure that it
pizza, we'll unbox that on the show as well.
A more likely request there. I approve, Jackson. No, it is a really big problem, I think, like the whole fragmentation of Android. And I know we've talked about it before, and I know we'll talk about it again. But it's quite frustrating because now there's a whole bunch of people sitting around wondering whether they're going to get Android Lollipop or not. And it's just up to the manufacturers of their hardware to decide, do we want to be bothered to give it to them?
Unless, of course, you go and buy a Nexus device, which, of course, from Google themselves, then you're going to get it, aren't you? You know what I mean? So if you buy, so I guess in some ways, which is the anti-paradigm, because I think what Google were trying to achieve really was to achieve separation between the device and the operating system, so that you could have so this would give them a multi-channel route to market, which, if you like, Apple doesn't really have with the products, with the software product all packaged into one thing. You just go and buy Apple products. So this would have been a good commercial strategy for Google to get deep penetration into the market by having lots of device manufacturers. But as you rightly say, because the device manufacturers they need some kind of differentiator, then they all start wrapping the flavor in different ways, packaging it in different ways, and doing different things with it. Samsung is a case in point with my experiences that I'm having there. So now we're back to this: go to Google and buy a Nexus and get Android Lollipop on your Google Nexus phone or tablet device. So of course it shows that the Apple approach of packaging the hardware with the software and making one kind of delivered product is the successful route to go, isn't it?
It's just frustratingly, like, it's kind of nightmarish doing development and trying to target Android. Because there's two big problems, I guess, and I run into them all the time. But one of them is that you sort of go, oh, Lollipop, look at all these cool UI features. Can't use them for at least 3 years, because you can't release an app that only works on Lollipop now, because no one can run it, and it'll be 6 months before it's even available to 25% of the people who own Android devices, and it might never be available to more than 50%. So that means you have to wait at least 2 years until everyone who has an Android device has bought a new one before you can use it. And it's like, whereas with Apple, like within a week of bringing out a new OS, they have something like a 93% uptake, so you can almost just throw away the old version straight away.
Is that helped as well by the I mean, I remember after because you and I went out and bought first gen iPads, didn't we? And then later down the sort of iOS path came in this over-the-air updates where you didn't need to plug it into iTunes anymore. The whole thing just updates automatically. Do you think that that's had a significant part to play in driving this immediate uptake with the software community and the app development community, John?
Definitely. I think there's actually a really good positive feedback loop going, and that's kind of because they added that feature. And it's even like, I've noticed this on Android, it's kind of like when there's a new version, it doesn't tell you always. You have to go dig through the system menu and go, oh, there's a new version. Why didn't it tell me? But even when it does, it kind of, if you hit update, it quite often just updates one version, and then you have to do it all again to update 2 or 3 times in a row sometimes, which is a bit of faff. And also, again, this kind of like there's no drum beating, so it's like Google can now say Lollipop's out, brilliant. Everyone picks up their phone, it's not available. They go to the Samsung website, and the Samsung says, oh, it'll be ready in March, and you just think, oh, fuck it, excuse my French. I mean, you think, well, when it comes out, I'll just get it, and there's no excitement behind it, and then the app developers don't develop for it, so there's no one saying you have to upgrade. Whereas what happens with Apple is it comes out within 12 hours. Every single person who's turned their device on at that time would have had a little pop-up on the screen just saying, by the way, there's an update. Just tap here and leave your phone on the side for a minute, and it'll be ready. You do that, and it's all updated. It's zero effort, and because 90% of people do that, app developers start using the new features that come with that OS, because generally there's new packages and all these new things that you can use. So the apps get vastly better or incrementally better over an upgrade, which then means the remaining 10 or 20% who haven't upgraded look at their friend's phone and go, oh, on Twitter you can just push this button and it does it over Bluetooth or something. That's pretty cool. How do I get that? And they just upgrade. So it kind of, this nice sort of feedback loop where everyone tells their friends to upgrade because there's a new shiny feature. Whereas on Android, no one uses the new shiny features. I mean, until years down the line, and then you have to sort of contend with. So that's one half of the development issue on Android, and I think I don't know what the fix is, because there's all the different device vendors, you can't force them to upgrade because it might not work. Like Google roll out the new version of Android, you've then got to take it into your company, put it on a device, and see if it actually works or not. Because Apple know exactly all the hardware they've got. They just test it on the 7 bits of hardware, and it works. Done. Whereas Google can't get 7,000 Android devices lined up and test on every single one before they ship it.
No.
But then the other half of the problem is that, so on Apple, obviously, all the drivers are written by Apple or one company. So like the Wi-Fi chip in the thing is done by whoever does that, Samsung probably. And the GPU drivers are written by Apple. So there's only one set to worry about. So if something goes wrong, it's probably your fault. But if it isn't, and there's something wrong with the driver, you only have to work around it on the iPad, and it works. Whereas I've run into issues over and over again on Android where some code just doesn't work on one device. You have 10 devices lined up. One of them, it doesn't work, and you've got to write. It takes a week or something to write a hack to figure out why it doesn't work. And it's this system library call is broken on this version of the drivers or something. But when you've got 6,000 devices, and that happens only on one of the 100, but that's still 60 devices it's going to happen on, and each one takes a week to fix. That's horrific.
I guess the solution, well, I say solution, but what will probably answer this is just time, and like given long enough, a focused brand, something like the Nexus devices, you just wait for like that to be taken up like more across the board, and as time goes by, if they can like maintain like this thing as a superior phone, like the phone to get, and more and more people are saying, you know what, I'm not even going to bother with that other stuff. I'll just get myself a Nexus because they'll all be running the same sort of specs, and it will do in a lot of other phone manufacturers that up until now have had a shot. But to do it like Apple, you've got to become more like Apple. I mean, there's just no way around it. I mean, you can be the alternative for a while, but if you want to like be as efficient as they are with this stuff, like you're saying, then you got to run your business more like them for sure.
Yeah, I mean, in fairness, it's very hard to argue and contradict those kinds of statements that you're making there. I mean, this is a problem that the open source community suffers with all the time. With, for example, game uptake on the Linux platform and graphics support on the Linux platform. And of course, well, wireless card support and so on and so forth. And you've got all of these kinds of issues that come with that, where the proprietary binary blob drivers may well work really well, but you can't kind of do that much with them in terms of being able to look at the code or alter or do anything. And then you've got open source drivers that people have worked really hard and put huge amounts of contribution effort in, but when you're reverse engineering everything, it's very hard to make drivers that work really well, and then you end up with this fragmentation, which is great for techies and people like us that are interested in the technology, but it's hard to see how you apply that saliently to the consumer market, where the user just wants a device to just work.
Yeah. No, I ran into some massive issues with Linux recently. Banging my head against the wall, probably, lost a good day and a half to it at work, and it's like that. Yeah, it's a shame, but I did. And you sort of, those are the times you think, oh, why do I have to lose this much time trying to get a computer to run? So I installed Ubuntu on the machine at work, because the stuff we work on is cross-platforms, Mac, Linux, and Windows. And then I installed it on the SSD because I'm given a box with a hard drive and an SSD in it. I was like, well, the hard drive's got Windows on. I'll put Linux on the SSD. And I install and get everything going. And then I run apt-get, and it took about 7 or 8. Well, it downloaded all the packages really quick. It took about 7 or 8 minutes to go through the last step of reading all the files that had been downloaded. So the bit where it kind of basically parses all the XML files it's downloaded, I assume they're XML, and then to tell you what packages are ready. Well, that took minutes, like 9 or 10 minutes. So I restarted and did a few things, and still doing it. I was like, what is going on? So I get everything set up anyway, thinking maybe it would go away with all the updates. And then a compile, which should take 3 minutes, was taking half an hour. And it's something to do with reading tons and tons of tiny files. So if I downloaded a gigabyte file from the internet, it's fine. But if I was doing something with like transferring a folder of 10,000 files from one to the other, that would take an hour, even though it's only 100 megs of files. So I'm like pulling my hair out and thinking maybe it's the SSD, tweaking all the different hard drive parameters and playing with everything.
Mm-hmm.
Nothing. So I think, okay, I'll just throw the SSD. I'll take the SSD out and I'll put it on a solid hard drive. This will fix it. So I reinstall it all again. Same problem. It's like, what is going on? And unplug bits of RAM and stuff just in case. Same problem. I can just assume that the hard drive controller on the motherboard, something funny was going on with the driver. That's the only thing I can come up with. But after a day and a half, I just had to give the computer back to IT, and they had to give me a different computer, like an older one, so because they couldn't do anything about it either. But it's those sort of scenarios, and you can't blame anyone. It's no one's fault. But you're like, well, that's hundreds of pounds of man hours when you add up everyone's time all put in to try and fix that.
I'll tell you what the problem was, John. The problem was you typed apt-get and you should have typed sudo apt-get. If you just put sudo on the front, it makes everything work. That's what I always do.
Yeah. What was the hardware, John? What was the make of the hardware?
Oh, I don't really know. It was running like an Intel Xeon CPU, so it was pretty hardcore.
Okay.
But I don't know what was inside it, to be honest. It's like they just get all their boxes from like HP or somewhere. And
So I come across a similar problem with Dell boxes, with exactly that, a problem with basically the hard disk drive controllers in the kernel, doing exactly that problem, basically giving I/O timeout read-write errors on load and on reading files, and it'd be intermittent and this, that, and the other. And this was when Dell was selling boxes with Ubuntu on it, and we bought the boxes with Ubuntu installed by Dell, and then sent their support guys running around in circles trying to get a fix for this, which in the end never forthcoming. But that was the problem for sure. I absolutely nailed it down to being something to do with the hard disk drive controller. The signals that the controller was sending back effectively were not just being handled completely by the hard disk driver. And again, this was because the disk drive controlling vendor ships a set of binaries that will load into Windows and run successfully, but the vendor has no support for Linux at all, and so you're reliant on the open source community and what the kernel, well, specifically what the Linux kernel community have written in terms of hard drive parameters. And that's not to say that those guys aren't really talented and don't do a really good job, because they do, and they really work hard at it. But when you've got no schematics and no details of the architecture of the hard drive, disk drive controller, or the graphics controller you're using, and all you've got
there's
to
a new
work
one
with,
coming out every week.
Yeah, exactly. And that's that's the issue, is that somehow we've, I think you're stuck with this dichotomy of either you've got the vendor like Apple, for example, who are writing the software and developing the hardware and developing all the drivers for it, and sure, it's all locked up, but it's all tested and working together. Windows sits somewhere in the middle. It's not to say that they don't have driver issues and compatibility issues, and then of course then you've got the open source stuff, which do have problems and make life a bit more difficult. So I don't know what the solution is there. Really. I don't know. But anyway, so long as we're not slating the Linux community, don't be slating off the open source community. I'm upset enough today. I'm agitated.
But going back to Android, I guess it's a similar issue, but slightly different in the sense that Linux had the problem that there's nobody developing drivers for Linux, so the community has to do it. Android has the problem that there's 100 companies all trying to take Android and then redevelop it slightly for their devices. But if they can't be bothered, you're stuck without anything. And if they do it badly because they're rushing it, you're also stuck with kind of a rubbish version of Android, and that reflects badly on Google, even though they've put out a very solid operating system, and the vendor has destroyed it before giving it to the user 6 months after the official release date. So.
Well, it's going to be interesting to see where it goes. Lots of releases going. I mean, obviously the release date now for Lollipop is 12th of November, and there's stuff up all on the Android site and stuff. You can find out that our listeners can find out more about that and some of the devices that they've got. The Nexus website, some of the stuff on there looks really cool, John. Tablets, phones, watches, very, very good.
Got my NVIDIA Shield tablet. That's my latest purchase. So I don't think I'll get another tablet that quickly. But this is running the Tegra K1. So I think it's only a 32-bit version because it's not the brand new CPU architecture, but it's got 192 cores of graphics power, equivalent to desktop graphics card from like 6 years ago or something. But still, it's like a proper desktop architectured graphics card chip, as opposed to being a cut down architecture for an ARM device. So pretty cool. It runs Portal, it runs Half-Life 2, and it runs Trying to all PC games, which is pretty cool.
Well, why don't we dive off into app review then, John, and can we just add a little bit about John's new tablets into the show notes? So John's new tablets, maybe we can have a little bit of a thing on there. But let's go and take a look at the app reviews. Cool. So well, I'm down to start again. I always feel like I'm always talking. Sorry, folks. And if you feel I'm talking too much, remember you can write into the show. It's devnorth at atrandom.org.uk. It's not at all. Do write into us. We'd love to hear from you. It's show at atrandom.org.uk. Email us there and tell us what we're doing wrong and why and what you want us to do to fix it.
If somebody told us to stop talking on our podcast, that'd be very wrong.
Yes. Well, quite indeed. Well, okay. So, I have news, app review stuff, and so I want to talk about iRacing. As you guys know, I'm big into iRacing, the online motorsports simulator. It's not a game, folks. This is serious. There's real money. There's real money on the table. So, what they've done. So,
that's a real game. Let's talk about people later.
As you know, I bought a new graphics card, which we unboxed on the last show, and it's been a crazy half term, so it's still in the box. I haven't got it in the PC yet. It's shocking, isn't it? I can't believe it. I'm actually embarrassed. I'm embarrassed that I haven't got this on. But of course, I'm running in iRacing. I'm running in the European Stock Car Championships at the moment in the Wi-Fi Spark Chevrolet, and so I had one opportunity to change the graphics card and update it, but it was race day that night, and I thought, I know what's going to happen. I'm going to take the graphics cards out, won't be able to get the drivers working, and then I won't be able to run the race. So I didn't do it. Anyway, that's not what I want to talk about. What I want to talk about is the latest release of iRacing that was released about 10 days ago. So this is the latest build, and they've introduced a whole bunch of new features. They've introduced some new cars. So they've introduced the into the V8 Supercar series. There's now 2 cars. There is the Ford Falcon, which they've had for a few years, and there is the Commodore. What's it called? It's just the Holden Commodore VF. Yes, the Holden VF Commodore. Right, that's the one they've introduced. So, which is an absolute animal. I got hold of that and took it for a spin around the track. And the V8 supercars are very hard to drive. I mean, they're very hard to drive in real life. It's a bit like putting a 1,000 horsepower engine into a Sainsbury's trolley and trying to use Nike trainers as brakes. It's tough work. But it's good fun. Anyway, so they've introduced that. They've introduced some new tracks, and they're also going to be rolling out the Nürburgring shortly, and the Aston Martin V12 Vantage is coming as well. So these things are all in the build. But the key thing that they've introduced, which is just awesome, is team racing. So what you're able to do is you can go to Spa-Francorchamps, for example, in Belgium, and be running a Porsche or a BMW Z4, and you can enter your team, and you can have up to 6 or 8 people in the team, and you've got one car, one person driving at the time, but all of the team can hang out in the pits, in pit lane, can watch the race and watch the other guy racing around the track. You can all talk to one another and interact. You can you can do pit strategy stuff, and you can do things like this, and then one person comes in, and these will be endurance races that can last from 60 minutes to potentially 24 hours. I think is going to be one of the things you'll be able to do. And so you go out and you run several laps, and then you bring the car back in, and when you pull in the pits, the next person can just press to jump in the car, and they go in the car, and you step out, and off they go, and they race, and you can all talk to each other on a team channel. And it's really, really great fun. It adds such a radically new dimension to the environment, because all of a sudden you've got this close-knit community of people that are team racing against other teams, and bringing out the competition and so on and so forth. I've done a little bit of this so far, and I've really enjoyed it. It's been absolutely great fun. And the other thing that's also been introduced, which is kind of suitable for our kind of tech advancement, is iRacing now has Oculus Rift support natively.
You're not going to be able to resist, are you, Rick? At Christmas, you're going to have one, I can tell.
Well, of course, I've got the graphics card now, haven't I? The graphics card, that NVIDIA graphics card, will support Oculus Rift. So
currently, you've got 1,664 cores of power sitting in a box. But hopefully, when you plug it in, you can use your Oculus Rift that you'll probably be getting shortly after.
Yeah.
Hopefully, the 200 gigabits per second of memory bandwidth will be enough.
Yeah, so that's my app review. I'm really impressed with it. I'm actually thinking of talking to Jackson, our brand marketing and art coordinator for AtRandom, about possibly running a. I was thinking about running an AtRandom Podcast car in the V8 supercars, and running the Commodore Holden, and getting it all branded up with. Well, of course, now we've got a new term for us three. We're now known, apparently, in the chat as the Bastards. So we can get plastered all over the bonnet of this V8 Holden and whip it out round the tracks and go and cause havoc.
Could be Team Bastard.
Whip it out round the tracks. Now there's a show name.
Anyway, so there we are. So that's my app review. So who's up next? John, I think, isn't it? What have you got for us, John?
Well, I've got one, but it seems boring now compared to the shiny new Android tablet. But I'll very quickly talk about the app, and we'll come back to the tablet at the end. So, living in Sweden, obviously, there's a different language here that people speak, and it's not English. Boo.
Big summer blowout, yeah.
And I started taking Swedish lessons this week, so I only had 2 so far, but it's quite cool. But obviously, looking for technology to help teach the language, and there's obviously Rosetta Stone, which is okay. We got it before we came, and it's all right. But there's another app which I downloaded on my iPad. It's considerably cheaper, and it's called Babel. Babel.
Oh, okay.
And you can download it for free on your iPad, and you can get it from many languages. So obviously I've got the Swedish one because that seemed like the logical thing to do. But you can get, I think there's German, Spanish, French, Swedish, and probably a whole pile more languages that I'm never going to be interested in. But it's quite well presented, nicely laid out, and it seems to be quite smoothly taking you into the language. Works really well on the iPad and the iPhone. They have a web client as well, so if you're away from your devices and you want to carry on the same course, then you can just sign in online and access your account. They had a few problems around the beginning of iOS beta, but it all seems to be smoothed out now. It's just a nice app. It's if you're thinking about learning a new language and you're a bit dubious about paying Rosetta Stone the £300 or whatever it is that's how much it's supposed to be. We got ours for like 70% off for, I don't know, a random sale they had, and we thought, yeah, we should do it. I mean, that's still 100 quid, say, but Babel was, I think it was something like £5 a month. So, if you buy 6 months in advance, you get it for £24 or something. So we bought that, and it's pretty good. Just Babel, Babbel. We'll obviously put a link in the show notes. But no, it's not an app for everyone, but if it's the sort of thing you're looking for and you've been looking at Rosetta Stone, then definitely give it a chance. Yeah?
Sounds really good, John. Sounds really good. Of course,
I might have used it.
I have trouble speaking the English language. What I really need is an app for reading and writing. That's what I seem to struggle with. But I wonder whether it does Welsh. Do you know whether it does? Does it translate Welsh?
I'm pretty sure it doesn't. It doesn't do any translating. It's all like a course, for teaching. But I'm trying to see if I can. More languages. Here we go. More languages. There are English, Spanish. So there is English. There you go. English, Spanish, French, German, Italian, Portuguese, Polish, Dutch, Indonesian, Turkish, Danish, Norwegian, and Russian.
Uh-huh.
So if any of those take your fancy. No Scottish either. No.
I've got Scottish. I can do that. I've got Scottish well sorted. I can speak that really well. I can. Good. Okay, it's the Welsh I'm struggling with, but there we are. Well, that sounds really good, John. Thank you for that. So, Jack, I know you've been busy with Dad's stuff and all the rest of it, but did you manage to dig out an app for us for the show? And if so, what you got?
Well, in those small hours at night, you do look for little ways to keep yourself occupied while they're asleep, and you got to watch them. You got to watch them sleep jealously. But I'm quite into, as you know, I'm into my gaming and stuff. And I think somebody mentioned earlier about emulation. I can't remember what the connection was, but it was a lovely app I found. It's basically an emulator for old arcade machine ROMs. If you're lucky enough to own shares in Midway and you have access to one of those ROMs yourself, otherwise there's no way you can play anything on it. But just say that you did. Just imagine that you own an arcade machine of Donkey Kong at home. And you have access to
an arcade downstairs. There's a whole arcade here, Jack, I own, so it's cool.
Oh, perfect then. Oh, you'll be right, Joe. This is right up your street. Basically, it's an emulator, a really accurate emulator for old arcade machines, and it'll run on any decent Android device. I don't think there's. I think because emulators are running quite old stuff, you don't have very many worries with compatibility. But the real reason, what makes it noteworthy, there's plenty of emulators about, but this one, because of what I saw people do with it, basically they had it running on phones, but they'd used the screens of the phones as the screens for tiny little arcade machines that they'd made. They'd made like lovely little arcade cabinets, complete with the little sticks and all the old artwork. Like somebody had made a full-on Space Invaders one with all the decals going up the side and everything, just using the screen of the phone. I can't speak for the iPhone and how it does it, but the iPhone is actually an official, well, not official, it's not from Apple or anything, but there's a special Bluetooth peripheral made for it where you can sit the phone in a cradle, and it's called the iCade, I think it is. But the people have made like their own versions for this. I expect a lot of them were custom built, and it just worked really, really well. If you haven't got the if you fancy building, I've already looked up a Bluetooth controller that is possibly going to function as my stick. It's probably about 3 inches long. It hangs off a keychain, and I thought that is perfect to sit the phone in there and attach a stick to the D-pad. And I just thought, as two halves of a project, that's quite doable. It's quite a small thing. The emulator itself has got in-game controls and everything, but they're the touchscreen stuff, and you can't help but think, this would be really good with a gamepad. And then I saw what other people had done, and I thought, how much further could you take this? If only I had access to any of the ROMs. So I guess we'll go that.
But at least you can have an arcade machine that sits there not running any games, right? Because that would be illegal.
No, I do believe there are a few that you are allowed to use. I have no idea which ones they are yet, but they're not all. They're not all owned. There's some ones that are just like in the public domain. But just for running like and it shows like it's a really good showcase for just for what you can do with the phone, things you can do with the phone, building this thing around it. I just thought it looked like a really fun project. And this emulator is, well, there are two versions of it, but this is certainly the better one of the two. You need to make sure it's the, bear with me a second, it's the version 0.139. That's the version you need to get, and it's completely free on the Android store. So you got, and yeah, it says
not version 0.37b that I'm looking at right now.
No, yeah, I wouldn't look at that one. That one's
that would be a fool.
Exactly, yeah. Cool. You don't need to make more trouble for yourself with this kind of thing. It says it is an emulator and does not include ROMs or copyrighted material of any kind. So they always have to hammer that into you. But I don't know what they're expecting. But but yeah, all good fun, and yeah, it's. I've already started planning what I'm going to do with this cabinet. It'll probably come to nothing, but
oh wow!
I'm going to get a little controller.
So I'm looking at. So whilst you were talking there, Jack, I just started looking at this MAME for Droid thing and seeing what it's about and so on and so forth. And I've just found this little thing here. I'm going to view the image and I'm going to stick this in the show notes because this is awesome based on what you were talking about. And it is a little, as you rightly say, right? It's a tiny little wooden Android wooden arcade cabinet. It's about maybe just a bit bigger than your hand, and it's got a little stick and buttons on it, and then you stick your iPhone. In this instance, it's an iPhone that's sticking in there, and you obviously and you're playing Pac-Man, and it's a little mini Pac-Man, and it's the coolest. It is the coolest thing I've ever seen. It's wicked.
I've seen people do quite nice ones with with the same emulator, with the same app, but they've done it on a tablet as well. They built like obviously larger cabinets, and you can put in a bit more of a robust. Well, you can pretty much build one of those bar top style cabinets, the ones that just sit on top, and you can have a full size.
Perfect size, isn't it, for
Exactly. I mean, the phone is like
the phone thing is kind of quirky and gimmicky, but this is actually like you could sit there playing like a tablet screen arcade machine for a considerable amount of time without thinking, what am I doing this for?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I think the phone one is more of a good way to practice building something to specifications before you say, okay, now I'm ready for the bar top thing. Because that you don't want to leap straight into the bar top one. I wouldn't have thought, because that's got a bit more involved.
Well, unfortunately, I can't give you any prices on this here, but this mini arcade game has got a Frozen Bubble, which is awesome. Space Invaders is there, and gosh, what's this called? Dodem Patch Blissful Death.
Dodem Patchy.
Dodem Patchy. Yeah, okay. So it's got Dodem Patchy, which looks pretty cool actually, and so that's up on ThinkGeek. I'll stick the product page in there as well, which is so that that's in the show. Now, it's not, of course, that Jack is on commission for promoting such items, but of course, if people would like to send anything like these mini arcade games to Jack for an unboxing exercise, I think would you be willing? You'd be willing to do a review of such a device, would you, Jack?
Yeah, I'd unbox it on the air and everything. I'll do all that stuff.
At a push, eh?
Yeah. They send one my way, and I'll give them a glowing endorsement, and then they can use my name, my likeness, and they can put it on their advertising if they want to. I'd give them that permission.
That's very kind of you, Jackson. I think that's a bargain, really. I mean, who can turn that offer down?
You can't turn down free publicity. Good publicity. As if the product matches up to what's promised.
Okie dokie, right, so, well, of course, the last bit we've got here is, of course, John's new tablet. So, come on, John,
so
what you got?
I don't want to talk about it too much, because I know that we've got another topic to go. But this is the NVIDIA Shield tablet, and it's quite recent, as in a month, maybe 2 months ago now. 7 or 8 inches, Yeah, I guess
NVIDIA
around there.
Shield tablet.
But it's running a quad-core Tegra K1 processor with a 5th core, which is kind of like what's the right word for it? Like a low-power core. So when the tablet's not doing much, it can just shut the 4 cores off and just run in like 800 megahertz, saving power. The graphics card itself has got 192 cores in, and it's using a Kepler architecture, which is similar to graphics cards 1 or 2 generations ago. I'm not sure. I mean, obviously it's very cut down because it's still running a tablet on low power, but it's I guess it's comparable to a pretty reasonable laptop graphics card from a couple of years ago. So it's clearly designed for gamers, and while it's not necessarily a bad device if you're not a gamer, it's obviously been built to target gamers. So the screen is basically 1080p. I think it might be another 30 pixels along the bottom to make space for the Android bar, but it's essentially a 1080p screen, which is maybe not quite as high resolution as you would expect from Retina display nowadays. But it's a smooth screen. I mean, if you look really, really close, you can just about see the edges of the pixels. So you can tell it's not super, super crisp. But obviously, the flip side of that is that when you're playing a game, it can actually render it at the screen resolution, which is amazing. Because you're not having to play games that are upscaled and kind of rubbish. So, but it's a very nice reading experience. It's got these speakers on the front, which is kind of a clever idea. So now when you're playing games or watching a film or even just listening to music, the music's actually being played at you and not off to the side and bouncing off the wall. And that actually makes it quite a good experience. One of the kind of things it's been designed for, obviously, again, from a gaming perspective, is that you're meant to prop it up. And you can actually buy an official wireless controller with it. So I haven't done that because I've got an Xbox controller and a PS4 controller, and while I haven't tried to make any of them work yet, I've heard it's very easy. So I'm keen to try that at some point, because on the flip side, NVIDIA have taken a few games, like Half-Life 2 and Portal 1, and ported them to this device. So they run it really smooth. And it's the full game. They've just taken all of Half-Life 2 and just recompiled it for this device. Pick the right settings so it runs nice and smooth, and it's a really good experience. And then there's a game called Trine 2 that came out on PC maybe a year or two ago, and on PS4 6 months ago. And that looks really sharp on here as well. So they've all obviously. I've played Trine with on-screen controls, and it's the usual on-screen control faff. But I'm really keen to get a controller hooked up to it, because that's kind of its shining glory, I guess. So other features, it's got a little HDMI out socket, so that you can. The idea is it's kind of like a portable console, so I can bring it around your house, piled full of N64 ROMs that I legally own, and a couple of games, and then plug it into the TV, and then we can just turn the screen off, and it will output 1080p to your TV, and you can just play games like a console. So that's kind of a cool experience.
Yeah, that's good.
And then back on the tablet side, it's got this stylus. So it just tucks in here, and it's got like a little stylus. So you probably can't really see this on the video, but it's kind of not as fine as a proper Wacom stylus.
Right.
But it's a lot better than those capacitive styluses that you get for like the iPad. So it's somewhere in the middle. If the ones that you get on the iPad are like massive felt tips, and then the ones that you get on the Surface Pro or the Wacom tablets are like proper pencils, I guess this is something like a... I don't know, really. I should have thought this before I went down the analogy, shouldn't I?
Maybe it's like a...
I guess it's more like a felt tip, and then the iPad thing is like a paintbrush. Like the iPad is so inaccurate. It's like not having a point. It's like a paintbrush. Whereas this is like a felt tip, so if you're careful, you can get pretty accurate. But it's within like a few millimeters. But it's a pretty good device.
Well, I've got one here. I'm just holding it up to the camera. This is actually off my graphics tablet, so like the Wacom kind of idea you talk about. And you can see that here. If I bring my face here, we'll get this right in a second. So you can see that there's like the nib. The nib on here is really quite pointed. And then if you hold yours up again, John, we can compare.
Compare sizes. I like it.
Hold up in front of the camera. Come on.
Put it in my forehead because you can see it then. But yeah, so it's kind of like this. It's kind of beveled, so it's off at an angle, and so it's kind of hard to see, I guess. But that kind of angle is what you're meant to use. So the surface area is maybe 3 millimeters by 6 millimeters, and you don't actually have to use all of it. You can get away with using half of it if you're trying to do fine stuff. But so it's like drawing with a felt tip pen, I guess. Quite a fine felt tip pen, and they've got it's different technology, so it's neither of the two technologies that you're used to. So hence it can work with this middle-sized pen, but they've developed it to be cheap. So the whole tablet, with all this power and stuff, is like 230 quid. So quite a bargain for what's inside it. And if you're buying something that you think you're going to want to play some serious games on now and then, it's a no-brainer. I mean, it's just head and shoulders above everything else that plays games, especially for its price. If you're not a gamer at all, would you really get much out of the massive graphics card in it? Probably not. You might want something with a slightly higher resolution screen. Again, not that it's bad. I mean, it's still 1080p on an 8-inch screen, so it is crisp. It's just not super crisp. But I think if you do anything gaming-wise or anything where you need a bit of extra power running in the background because you've got maybe some custom app that you're using for your business that doesn't run very well on other devices, then it's really good. I mean, it's a brilliant device. So.
Full-on gaming tablets. We should live to see such days.
It's incredible, isn't it, really, how the technology is, if you think, where the technology has come from, and the rapidity of the curve in terms of performance, from like the early, if you think about the early, I think like sort of things like PlayStation 1 or the Nintendo Game Boy or these kinds of things. And now, I mean, I'm looking at the website here, which is so super flash, the shield.nvidia.com, and it looks just super shiny, the website does. But this, I mean, the games that shows you the videos of the games of that Trine 2 you're talking about, and well, to be honest with you, it looks more like a Disney cartoon. Movie than it does a game. It's quite astonishing, really.
No, it's a stunning showpiece. It's a really good device, and obviously it's going to get Lollipop. Who knows when? Theoretically this month, but they wouldn't want to actually give you a date because then you might get excited. About the release then.
If they gave you a date, then they'd have to meet it, and that's always like nobody ever wants to commit now, do they?
I know what they get. Just jumping back a second. It could almost definitely run it. I mean, I have no doubt it could run it. So you need to badger the iRacing guys and tell them to make it work on ARM, because that would be pretty cool if you could just kick back with a joypad on your tablet and just get your fix of iRacing. You probably even plug a wheel into it. There's no reason why they couldn't use all that technology.
Yeah.
That'd be quite good. I could race at lunchtime then.
Oh, one of the big features, that they've got, which is pretty cool, is this. They've kind of using NVIDIA streaming. So if you have a gaming PC in the house, I think theoretically anywhere around the world, but I mean it's designed to work within your house, then you can stream 1080p stream from your laptop or your gaming PC to your tablet and play the game. And obviously with the controller, that basically gives you support to play the game from your PC anywhere in your house. But you can also then use the same service. They've got like a streaming service from America, and obviously when it rolls out properly, it'll go to the rest of the world. But I can use it even though it says only allowed in America. I've been able to use it on my device, not with funny stuff. And you can play these games, just PC games that are streaming across the web, and there is a little bit of lag, but not as much as you think. It's a really good experience, and you're just playing these games thinking, this is actually running in America. And then after 15 minutes, you get dropped, but you get kicked or whatever, which is always the limiting factor, is some net connection in the middle. But that's quite cool. And then they've also added the shadow play. So now if you're playing games on this tablet, you can record you're playing it at about 30 frames a second, regardless of what game you're playing. So that's also pretty cool. But going back to the Android thing really quickly, it just made me thought. I guess one thing which they could do, which would be a lot of organisation, but I almost think it would be worth it, is if Google said, okay, we're baking this is Android Lollipop. Internally, they say it's done, and then they ship it out to the manufacturers, and maybe there's some sort of, almost maybe potentially like a financial bonus or penalty, and say you've got 6 weeks to get your device ready for it, or if you don't hit that deadline, then you lose your premium supplier rating or something. Part of the sort of agreement could be that you'll get your updates out within 6 weeks or 2 months, and then the official launch date will be 2 months after the Gold Master's released. And it sounds really draconian, but I think that sort of thing could potentially work. It's obviously just top of my head idea, but with some massaging, that sort of system.
It definitely needs some work, doesn't it? Because the kind of the way the things have gone at the moment, it's not helping. The situation is not being helped at all.
Because I know people who are like, oh, Lollipop's going to be cool, but no one can get excited about it because they have no idea when they're going to get it. If they're going to get it. Some devices that are 18 months old could definitely run it, 2 gigs of RAM and dual-core processors, and it's just down to whether they can be asked to port it, And most of the time the answer is no, because they want you to buy a new device, not for any other reason.
Well, guys, I think we once again we've busted the allotted time quota for AtRandom. But
Definitely.
folks, that's the whole point of AtRandom, is that it happens randomly, and it's at random lengths with random topics and no set format, and you never know what you're going to get. Frankly, I mean, even things like reviews of Yorkshire tea are not out of the question. Yorkshire tea.
One of those.
Magic stuff. I might bring. Do you know what? I'm going to do that. I forgot to do the what you're drinking at the start of the show. So let's do what you're drinking at the end of the show. So John, what you been drinking this evening?
2.8% Carlsberg.
Boo.
Yeah, that's as good as it gets here in Sweden.
you bad lad. You wino. What next? Big issue? Will it be big issue sale?
Without going to a specialist store for the alcoholics, 3% or 3.5% is your limit. So
3.5% is your limit. I wouldn't even bother. It's not worth drinking at that, is it?
It's fine. Like you just got to drink twice as much, then it's 7%.
You'd be better off buying a tube of glue and sniffing it.
Yeah, I mean, I'm more a kind of Tennant's Supra Carlsberg special brew man myself, and I mean, I can be tamed into I can probably be tamed into something around about the 5% mark, but 2.8%, nah. Well, I have, and of course, the hardcore drinker that I am, I've been on, actually, a smashing, refreshing cup of Tetley this evening, because I've been running around doing various things, and unfortunately, I went to the beer cupboard and it was bare, and there was nothing there. So I've had tea this week, unfortunately, but maybe I'll get something for next week. And what about you, John? Jack, what have you been on? Cow and Gate?
Just whatever's in my coffee cup. I think it's coffee. I've been crazy about coffee at the moment. It's, Kenko, I think it might be Kenko. The one with the blue top. Which one is that? Is that like smooth, or is it like?
Oh, rich. No. The blue top Kenko is Kenko really rich, isn't it?
Oh, there we go. I've joined the High Flyers Club then. I'm drinking
sophisticated coffee. Yeah.
You drink coffee with your tail.
Well, listen, folks. Let us know what you think. You can find our website at atrandom.org.uk. You can get in touch with us there, and you can post some comments and send us an email is the best thing to do, and we'll take a look at that at some random point in the future. And of course, once again, another great show, and it's great to have you back, Jack. We definitely missed you, and it's wonderful news about Bernie, your lovely 3.5-week-old daughter. So nice one for that.
We'll see how lovely she is in a minute.
We will, well, of course, we're going to leave you folks as well, so I'm going to sign off in a moment, and I'll sort out dubbing out something from Magnitude on the end so that you can listen to this, and we won't just leave you in stark silence randomly. As
we will if you're listening now.
But we will if you're listening now, indeed. If you're a live viewer, then you're about to be dumped into /dev/null. But there we are. So, well, folks, it's been wonderful. What a great show. It's been an absolute delight for me. I've enjoyed myself once again. We'll see you in a couple of weeks or something like that. My name's Rick Timmis, and I'll see you soon.
I've been John Wordsworth, and I still am. Thanks for listening.
I'm Jackson Matthews, and we have been a complete set of bastards.